Good afternoon and welcome to the Public Service Commission of South Carolina. We're here today for an allowable ex parte presentation from Santee Cooper. And I will ask now if we could get a roll call of the commissioners present. Present in the hearing room, we have Commissioner Carolee Williams, Commissioner Caston, Commissioner Powers, and myself, Vice Chair Belser. And joining us virtually, we have Commissioner Irvin and Commissioner Thomas. And I will recognize Mr. Stark, our staff counsel, if he will read the docket to introduce the proceeding.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Madam Vice Chair and other commissioners, we're here for the proceeding in non-docketed item 2022-3-E, which is a request for an allowable ex parte briefing for South Carolina Public Service Authority, Santee Cooper, regarding an overview of the company's 2020 Comprehensive Integrated Resource Plan, plans for its Integrated Resource Plan update, and to present a proposed procedural schedule for its competitive procurement renewable energy filing or petition. Madam Vice Chairman, this currently is Wednesday, February the 26th, 2022 at 2:35 p.m. as noticed. Madam Vice Chair, I believe the proceeding may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Stark. Pursuant to the terms of South Carolina Code Annotated 58-3-260, which provides for the allowable ex parte presentation, who's here for the Office of Regulatory Staff?
Vice Chair Belser, members of the Commission, good afternoon. Nicole Hare on behalf of the Office of Regulatory Staff.
Thank you, Ms. Hare. Before we get to introduce our guests, I do want to recognize Mr. Stark to go over some of our guidelines for the day. So.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chairman. Good afternoon, commissioners and all who are present here today, virtually or in person. Today, as previously mentioned, is Wednesday, February 16th, 2022, and we're here in the Commission's hearing room pursuant to a notice of request for an allowable ex parte presentation. The request for this allowable ex parte briefing is outlined in Commission Order number 2022-3-8, which is incident to the non-docketed matter 2022-3-E. The subject matter notice concerns an allowable ex parte briefing from the South Carolina Public Service Authority, Santee Cooper, regarding an overview of the company's 2022 comprehensive IRP and plans for its IRP update, and to present a proposed procedural schedule for its competitive procurement of renewable energy filing or petition. This, I would remind everyone, is a briefing and not a hearing. The briefing must be conducted in compliance with the provisions of South Carolina Code Annotated Section 58-3-260C, and the requirements of that statute are, in part, that the allowable ex parte briefing be confined to the subject matter which has been noticed. I would therefore ask the presenters, commissioners, and staff to please refrain from discussing any matters not related to the specific topic. The statute prohibits any presenter, commissioners, or commission staff from requesting or giving any commitment, predetermination, or prediction regarding any action by any commissioner as to an ultimate issue which is either likely to come before the commission or is pending before the commission. I would also ask the presenters, staff, and commissioners to refrain from referencing any report, article, statute, or document of any kind that are not included in today's presentation. A copy of any document which is referenced during the briefing must be provided to the Office of Regulatory Staff for inclusion into the record, which will be certified to the Chief Clerk of the Commission, Ms. Jocelyn Boyd. If anyone during the course of this briefing exceeds the scope or does not comply with or fails to conduct themselves within the provision of South Carolina Code Section 58-3-260 concerning allowable ex parte briefings, it is expected that a contemporaneous objection will be made. And finally, everyone in attendance today, in person or virtually, must sign in or register. Everyone in the hearing room or watching virtually must read, sign, and return the form which you were given at the door, or the form which will be emailed to you for your virtual appearance, which will include instructions and the deadline for its return. It is required by law for each attendee, whether attending virtually or in person, to certify that the requirements contained in Section 58-3-260C have been complied with in this presentation. Thank you all for your time and attention. Thank you, Madam Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Stark. Good afternoon, Mr. Duckworth. We appreciate you and your team being here today. On a personal note, I would like to thank y'all for working with our schedule. I know that y'all had indicated that another day this week might have been a little preferable, but this is one of the few weeks where we commissioners have the opportunity to attend the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners meetings, and those are very educational for us, so we certainly appreciate y'all working with our schedule to accommodate us on this briefing today. And with that, Mr. Duckworth, I'll recognize you and let you kick it off, introduce your team, however y'all like to proceed.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and we do appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm Charlie Duckworth, Acting President and CEO of the South Carolina Public Service Authority, or Santee Cooper. On March 1st, Santee Cooper will welcome our new President and CEO, Jimmy Staten. He has extensive electric and natural gas utility experience and leadership experience in the Midwest. And at that point, I will resume my position as Santee Cooper's Deputy CEO and Chief Planning and Innovation Officer. My colleagues and I are grateful for the opportunity to be here today and provide you an overview of our 2020 Comprehensive Integrated Resource Plan, and to share our plans for an Integrated Resource Plan update, fulfilling our obligations under Act 90 of 2021. We look forward to the IRP process, and in particular to the stakeholder engagement component, because we know it'll produce a stronger resource plan. And as you will hear shortly, we are planning our first public stakeholder meeting for March 1st. Today we will also offer a proposed procedural schedule for a competitive procurement renewable energy process. We look forward to your questions in both areas and commit to a prompt follow-up on any matters that arise from today's briefing. Now I'd like to introduce my two colleagues who will cover most of our material today. First, to my right, Raul Dimbla. Raul currently leads the resource and financial planning areas for Santee Cooper, and he has held several leadership positions since joining the utility in 2016. In aggregate, he has 16 years of utility experience, including 10 years as an investment banker serving public power utilities across the country. He led the team that developed our 2020 Integrated Resource Plan. He also played a critical role in our most recent competitive procurement of renewable power in 2020, which resulted in 425 megawatts of solar power acquired by Central and Santee Cooper. He will provide you an overview of information about our Integrated Resource Plan and planning process. Also here today is Shawan Gillens. Shawan has been with Santee Cooper for 10 years and is our Director of Legal Services and our Corporate Secretary. She has 15 years experience in transactional and finance matters and was Santee Cooper's treasurer prior to taking her current position. Shawan also was a part of the team last year that assisted in providing input to the legislative officials as they drafted Act 90. She will discuss legal provisions related to the RFP process with Act 90. With that, I'll turn things over to Raul Dimbla, and again, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Duckworth. Mr. Dimbla, if you could turn your mic on and please speak into it so that we can hear you and anybody on the internet as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I need to have the slide deck on, or?
Are you ready for it?
Okay.
There it is.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity. This section of the presentation provides an overview of Santee Cooper's 2020 Integrated Resource Plan. In accordance with the Act 62 of 2019, Santee Cooper submitted its triennial Integrated Resource Plan to the State Energy Office on December 23, 2020. The 2020 IRP addressed the requirements of Act 62, same as the requirements placed on the investor-owned utilities in South Carolina. However, it did not require the Commission's approval. A copy of the 2020 IRP is available to all on the websites of Santee Cooper and the State Energy Office. The links are included in the footnotes on this slide. Santee Cooper developed its 2020 IRP to comply with the requirements of Act 62 and address the following topics: our long-term load forecasts and reasonable scenarios, information related to proposed generating resources, traditional and renewable, summary of planned transmission investments. The plan analyzed resource portfolios of demand and supply side alternatives and retirement of existing coal resources. These portfolios were evaluated for cost and reliability under a realistic set of base case assumptions and by analyzing sensitivities to certain key assumptions, such as fuel cost, load, and environmental regulation in the form of a tax on CO2 emissions. The IRP also included information on our existing resources. Santee Cooper's resource planning principles. Santee Cooper is committed to pursuing a power supply roadmap that would achieve a more diversified portfolio of resources with reduced environmental impact while keeping our customer prices stable. To achieve these goals and guide our resource planning, we formally adopted key principles listed on this slide. These 8 core planning principles provide us important metrics that we seek to balance as we evaluate and compare multiple resource portfolios. These planning principles include reliability, the most critical product of any electric utility, a customer focus, cost management, which translates to competitive prices to our customers, responsibly managing environmental impact of our operations and resource decisions, taking a long-term view by recognizing that the future is inherently uncertain. We seek to create a resource roadmap that is diverse and flexible. Reduced financial and planning risk by taking a measured and phased approach and closely matching resources to need. Embracing innovation by identifying evolving technologies such as storage and incorporating them in our plans when reasonable and cost-effective. And finally, transparency with all who have a stake in our resource plans. Santee Cooper believes that adherence to these principles will ensure a robust and balanced resource roadmap which will achieve our goals under a wide range of future conditions. (2020) IRP process. We utilized generally accepted utility practices to prepare our 2020 IRP. As discussed on the prior slide, we adopted planning principles to guide us. We utilized realistic projections of economic and market conditions and industry-based assumptions for future resource alternatives, including traditional resources, as well as solar and storage. For existing resources, we relied on historical operating characteristics and developed potential costs that could be avoided by retiring our coal portfolio. The box on the right side of the illustration, titled Portfolio Optimization, represents the analytical and modeling phase of the IRP process. The IRP development included the use of load forecasts developed using industry standard techniques, integration of cost-effective demand-side management programs, transmission analysis, screening of potential resource sites, and finally, optimization of resource expansion plans, which included coal retirements. This process resulted in our preferred resource plan, summarized on the next slide. Our 2020 IRP confirmed our strategic resource direction or roadmap, which included following key elements: retire coal, a phased retirement of all 4 Vinya units by 2027. Increase solar. Phased implementation of solar, beginning with 500 megawatts of solar by 2023 through an RFP process. An RFP process which was ongoing at the time of development of our 2020 IRP. An additional 500 megawatts by 2026 and growing to 1,500 megawatts in aggregate by the early 2030s. Incorporating advanced technologies in the form of battery storage in phases to take advantage of technological advancements and expected cost decline. The plan included 200 megawatts in storage starting in the mid-2020s. Increased natural gas resources. Modern, efficient, and flexible natural gas resources to replace retired coal capacity and enable integration of greater amounts of intermittent solar resource. And finally, an expansion of demand-side programs. This chart depicts the supply and demand balance achieved by the IRP's preferred resource plan. It shows our winter peak demand represented by the solid blue line, and the resource type projected to meet that demand represented by the stacked bars. As shown, the plan provides for increased diversity of resource types and is designed to closely align future resource additions to load requirements. By doing so, we minimize Santee Cooper's future capital investments and incorporate flexibility in our resource roadmap. I want to note that this graphic illustrates the capacity mix and does not capture the impact of 1,500 megawatts of solar addition. Santee Cooper's winter peak generally occurs early on a winter morning when a solar resource is unlikely to contribute firm capacity. The impact of adding significant amounts of solar to our resource mix is captured on the next slide that shows much improved diversity in our energy mix. These pie charts illustrate the changes in Santee Cooper's projected energy mix in the year 2033, resulting from the IRP 2020's preferred resource plan. Year 2033 is represented since it occurs following the implementation of major anticipated elements of the plan, retirement of Winyah coal, and addition of solar and new natural gas resources. It indicates a significant improvement in the diversity of energy resources used to meet Santee Cooper's retail and wholesale energy requirements. As shown, this resource transformation, when compared to our pre-reform plan outlook, reduces the share of energy from coal significantly from 52% to 19%, and quadruples the energy from sustainable resources, primarily from addition of 1,500 megawatts of solar. As a result of these resource changes, it was projected that the preferred resource plan would reduce CO2 emissions by over 50% compared to 2005 levels. IRP 2020 recent actions. Our resource plan is a long-term strategic roadmap, but it also provides a framework for near-term resource actions. Since its filing, the key elements of the resource direction established in the IRP have continued to guide us. Here, we have provided a status of 3 elements of the plan, where we have made progress since the IRP's development: coal retirement, more solar, and planning for the late 2020s resource. These actions are consistent with IRP's strategic resource direction, with some differences to reflect the passage of time, or in the case of solar, the results of the competitive solicitation process that was ongoing during the development of IRP 2020. Coal retirement. Santee Cooper's board approved a decision to retire all 1,150 megawatts of Winyah coal units no later than December 2028. And we have idled one of those units, as of the winter of 2020 and 21. Regarding solar, Central and Santee Cooper, through a competitive RFP process, have acquired 425 megawatts of solar. These projects are expected to reach operations by late 2023 or early 2024. Santee Cooper will pay for the energy produced by these solar resources and will not own or finance these assets. Excuse me. In concluding this slide, and lastly, Central and Santee Cooper have conducted joint analysis related to the late 2020s resource need, and our diligence continues. In concluding this slide and this section, I must emphasize that while Santee Cooper is conducting necessary diligence, any commitments related to future resources, including the late 2020s natural gas resources, will be guided by Act 90 requirements and the 2023 IRP outcome, which will include stakeholder input and require the Commission's approval. I will now present our plans for integrated resource plan updates. The Act 90 of 2021, among other things, revised the requirements concerning Santee Cooper's integrated resource plan. The Act requires Santee Cooper submit its next triennial IRP to the Commission, subject to the Commission's review and approval. Once Santee Cooper's next triennial IRP is approved by the Commission, we will be required to submit annual updates to the approved IRP to the Commission. In our recent letter to the Commission, Santee Cooper respectfully recommended that May 15, 2023 be set as the date of the filing of Santee Cooper's 2023 triennial IRP. The proposed schedule will place our filing roughly midway between Dominion's and Duke's anticipated 2023 filings, and should allow the Office of the Regulatory Staff and the Commission to best utilize resources to conduct the Commission's proceedings. The recommended filing date will afford Santee Cooper sufficient time for fulfillment of all IRP requirements, including a robust stakeholder process. I will provide an overview of the stakeholder process on the next slide. Under our proposed schedule, our 2023 IRP would be filed approximately 29 months from our last triennial IRP submission in December 2020. Beginning with our 2023 IRP, Santee Cooper will initiate a public stakeholder engagement process. The process will involve a series of meetings designed to seek input from all stakeholders. This feedback will inform the content of our 2023 IRP. We anticipate at least 5 sessions, and the first of the sessions is already scheduled for March 1, less than 2 weeks from this day. The session will be virtual and interactive, and will be facilitated by consultants with experience and expertise in conducting similar stakeholder sessions. We will notify stakeholders and public approximately 30 days prior to each session. There will be a web portal to streamline communication and warehouse meeting materials. We will target a diverse stakeholder group with representation from all that have a stake in the outcome of Santee Cooper's IRP, including retail and wholesale customers, electric cooperatives and central, municipalities, industrials, and organizations representing environmental and economic justice. There will be opportunities for stakeholders to provide input regarding assumptions, scenarios, sensitivities, and resource portfolios to be evaluated by Santee Cooper. Following the sessions, we will seek stakeholders' feedback on the process itself and make improvements to subsequent sessions. It is our goal to be transparent with our diverse stakeholder group, and we will utilize the stakeholder web portal to share correspondence and reports summarizing stakeholder feedback and progress on the IRP. Shwan, I can control it for you if you want.
Thank you, Rahul. I think everyone can hear me. Good afternoon. Again, my name is Shawan Gillens, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Director of Legal Services and Corporate Secretary for Santee Cooper. And I want to begin by noting that. I think we're back up, Rahul.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to begin by noting that we appreciate and look forward to the role the Commission will play in Santee Cooper's future competitive procurement process for renewable energy, as that role is prescribed by Act 90 of 2021. The place of renewable energy in our resource portfolio will be determined by our next triennial IRP, as my colleague Rahul stated, and of course, the stakeholder engagement we'll utilize to develop that IRP. As you might expect, when we seek approval from the Commission for our program, we'll be driven largely by two things. When we anticipate the need for future renewable resources and the amount of time we anticipate the Commission may need to consider our application. Based on those factors and what we know today, we currently expect that we would file that application no sooner than September 2022, so September of this year. Next slide. What I will not do is insult or bore you by reading this entire slide. But what I do want to do is to assure you that Santee Cooper has familiarized itself with the requirements of its competitive procurement program, what that program requirement must meet, and our process is being developed in such a way that will comply with those requirements. In fact, if you consider the competitive procurement process for solar power that we began in 2019 and concluded in 2020, you'll find that Santee Cooper was already largely in compliance with the process promulgated by Act 90. And with that recently completed process in mind, we're confident in our ability to offer a fair process for the Commission's consideration and to work meaningfully with program process participants. That concludes our formal presentation, but of course, we're happy to answer any questions the Commission may have as best we can.
Thank you, presenters this afternoon. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Duckworth, Mr. Dembla, or Ms. Gillums? Anyone? Commissioners? Well,
Vice Chairman Belzer.
Commissioner Williams.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll echo her appreciation for your being here and what you presented to us today. I noticed the reference, Mr. Dembla, to battery storage, and was just curious if you could tell us more about what your thinking was in terms of the amount of time that storage might be available. What the current standard is. We're as Chairman Belzer just mentioned, we've just been to a virtual conference, and so we're hearing a lot about a 10-hour standard and then more, what's more accessible right now. And I was just curious if there's a standard that you're working towards.
Yeah, that's a great question, Commissioner Williams. I'll tell you. Sorry. Okay, I'm good. Yeah, that's a really good question, and I'll tell you that what our thinking was in 2020 or when we developed this IRP, and it goes back to our planning principles. At the time, we looked at them and we said that one of the principles is incorporating advanced technologies, and then we worked with our consultants, and they guided us. They told us based on industry research that there's expectation that the storage technology will evolve and the cost curve will improve, the cost will decline. So based on the best available information at the time, and to answer your question directly, we looked at 2-hour, 4-hour duration storages. The feedback we received at the time was the initial tranche of storage, 2 hours would be suitable because the capital costs are lower. However, we noted in our IRP that this is an evolving technology. Santee Cooper needs to do a lot more work and analysis prior to our next IRP, and take that analysis to the next level. So that's how we placed those battery storages as a placeholder module in our resource plan, knowing they have a place in our long-term plan, but we intend to refine that analysis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On the next page of your presentation, no, two more. I was curious, the lighter blue, economy purchases, is that CPRE, is that solar? So I'm on the 2020 IRP Energy and Technology Diversity,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
there's a pie chart, and 20% in the 2020 IRP Outlook.
That's right. So that economy purchase is primarily gas-based, and it's driven by the so once we have a resource portfolio in place, the portfolio has the ability to fuel switch. So based on our base case assumptions, it tries to pick the best resource from our portfolio and the neighboring utilities, and whatever results in the lowest cost, it picks those. So this pie chart was generated based on those base case fuel assumptions, what the fuel mix would look like.
Okay. Well, then that leads really well to my next question, which is I noticed the gray and then the dark blue. Dark blue was, I think, and maybe I misread it, new gas,
That's right.
and gray is existing gas. Can you talk about those three together for me?
That's right. So the dark blue, that represents the late 2020s resource that's in our resource plan. Now, once in place, a modern natural gas combined cycle will be the most efficient resource in our portfolio. So it would dispatch as a base load. It would be the first to dispatch for the lowest cost dispatch. So that represents the new resource, and the gray one represents our rainy gas units, which are in the northwest portion of the state, which is also very reasonably efficient, not as efficient as this new resource that we are projecting, but still one of the more efficient resources in our portfolio. So that's the next to dispatch, and that's what that competes with the coal units and the purchase power from the neighboring utilities, and results in this mix.
So is it rainy?
That's rainy. That's right. The gray one.
When I look at the pre-reform, is that a part of the 29%? I'm
That's
kind of
right.
looking at how they
Yes.
evolve and the change.
That's exactly right. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think I have one other question. It's probably for Ms. Gilliam. Can you, Ms. Gilliam, add to anything, elaborate any on the CPRE program and the impact to the interconnection queue?
In terms of the program, a requirement of the program does have to be a qualified bidder. You would have to have that interconnection queue in line. Are you concerned, or is your question that the process would elongate that interconnection process? Or, and I don't know, because we already have a fairly robust interconnection program because of our participation in PURPA, and as a result of the 2020 competitive procurement process. I don't know that we would expect a great deal of increase. Rahul and Charlie, I don't know that we would see that draw on our resources for the procurement program or for the interconnection program, but I defer to Charlie and Rahul on that.
Yeah, I would just add to that in our, we referenced, we had a very good starting point from our prior procurement in 2019, 2020. This was not a requirement at the time. So this would help the process, I think. I think it will bring more high quality responses, is my initial reaction. And instead of us doing an evaluation after getting the responses and seeing what the interconnection status is, I think it would weed out some of the folks who may not be serious or have not invested the time. So I see benefits to it, but you know, I think we'll be able to comply with that. Is that responsive, Commissioner Williams?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I didn't know. I was just curious.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. No further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other commissioners? Commissioners? Hearing none.
Madam Vice Chair. Madam Vice Chair,
Commissioner Irvin?
thank you. Let me thank the panel for your presentation today and information you shared with us. We are very grateful for your taking time out of your busy schedule to accommodate our schedule. I'd like to follow up just on one thing that you talked about earlier. Part of your demand side plan calls for purchasing power from other utilities outside the state. And I'm wondering what percentage of your demand load will be, is projected to be covered by out-of-state utilities going forward.
Commissioner Irving, there are two aspects to it. We had a discussion about a future resource in the IRP 2020. In the IRP 2020, we had a planning principle that we will keep our demand and supply in balance. And what we did was we sized at the time, we sized 550 megawatts of a new resource in late 2020s, in 2027. And following that, as our demand kept growing, we relied on purchases from neighboring utilities. And now, based on the assumptions we had at the time, I do not have the exact. I know it's in the IRP 2020. I even recall. I think there's a table with the annual purchases. I think it grows to a few hundred megawatts by the 2040s. That's my recollection. And then the other piece of that is what we were talking about is the energy side of it. We will still rely on neighboring utilities to import energy whenever it saves money compared to our portfolio.
And so what you're saying is that will be done in a competitive bid type process where you go with the least costly alternative. Is that what you're saying?
I would say that's correct, Commissioner Irvin. The IRP did not address the it looked at the long-term resource need and how we would fulfill it, and did not focus on the procurement side of it. But I anticipate that would be the case.
Right. And so could we, or should we expect going forward that maybe you'll drill down deeper in regards to how that might work for going forward?
Per Act 90, it's my understanding that if we procure any contract which meets certain thresholds, 10-year contract, I believe, we would have to go and come and seek approval from the commission. So yes, I anticipate that would be the case, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about in your competitive solicitation process, has that now been completed or is it still ongoing for renewable energy resources?
The solar procurement that we conducted in 2019 and 2020, it was completed in early 2021. So
all those new resources have already on the grid. They've been interconnected and used currently.
No, sir. The procurement was completed, but now, based on the arrangement we have with the providers, the construction will take place, and these resources are expected to be commercial by late 2023 or early 2024.
Have the successful bidders on those solar projects incurred any delays due to the what we're seeing with the international slowdown and various supply lines. Is that slowing the process, or do you know?
We have a process in place where we seek feedback from the bidders, every couple of months. I would say at this stage, a few of them have expressed challenges, but nobody has pushed out the timeline. So they seem to be making progress. That remains a risk given what's going on, just macroeconomically, but they appear to be on track so far.
Well, that's good news. It's good to hear. Well, thank you again for being available today, and we look forward to working with you going forward. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Irvin. Any other commissioners? Mr. Duckworth, Mr. Dumbla, Ms. Gillums, again, I thank you for your presentations today, for accommodating our schedules, and for sharing your information with us. We certainly appreciate it. We look forward to working with your Santee Cooper team as we work through the challenges and implement Act 90. So thank you all for being here today. And with that, we will, well, before we close it, I do want to remind everybody in the room to please sign the certification form and turn it in before you leave today. And folks online, you will be receiving that certification form online to return to us as well. Anything else, Mr. Stark?
No, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you all very much, and we'll
Thank you.
close this proceeding. Thank you.
We appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.